so for this next part here, what we're going to be working on is what they call the Powercell. And what that consists of here is this box right here with these ribs. This kind of bluish area in the middle, might not show up on camera, but that's where LEDs go. And that's a row of traveling indicator lights from the bottom up. And there are two tubes that stick down. And remember those holes that we drilled in that little 1/2-inch block? Well, that's where the hoses get connected to from that little block up to the bottom of those tubes. Now these tubes are aluminum tubes that are welded at the bottom, and they're welded to an 1/8-inch plate underneath this, right here. Now this is where you can kind of go off the rails with authenticity. If you look at screen captures and really up close pictures of the actual screen use packs, right underneath this, between this block and these tubes, there's what looks like a shim. It actually looks like a regular tapered door shim, because if you look at the packs, the bottom of this has a slight angle to it. So it looks like they stuck a wooden door shim in there to get these tubes to line up parallel with the motherboard, so it looks straight. Now you can go crazy with replicating all that, but we're not gonna go that crazy. I basically want the look and feel of it. It doesn't need to be, you know, spot on, crazy, 100% how they made it accurate, as long as we look the part. So basically what we're gonna do is make this just a straight square box, and then on the bottom here we'll get a piece of 1/8-inch plywood, and we'll put the tubes into there. Now, like I said, these were welded aluminum tubes. They were welded at the bottom here, welded to an 1/8-inch plate that was then inserted into the fiberglass. Obviously, I'm probably not going to use an aluminum tube and weld, but we can replicate welds. There are ways to do that, and I could probably get a plastic tube to do it. I still haven't really 100% decided on all the round stuff yet, so we're going to hold off on that. But we are going to make this block. And so let me zoom you out a little bit here. So here are the basic plans of what everything looks like. And you see it looks like this here when we're done. And basically what we have here is we are 2 inches wide by 5 inches long. And then that is your 1/8-inch plate, and here are your tubes. And then we have the blocks here that we're going to cut. We're going to cut that from plywood. 5/8 by 3/8 and 1/2 by 3/8. So it'll be 3 1/2 by 3/8 and 2 5/8 by 3/8. And here is the window where the LEDs go. Now this sticks out proud pretty good from the pack, so it needs to be relatively strong to not get bashed around. But like I said, I need it light. I was thinking of going around and making it making it out of wood, making it out of plywood. That one made it easier, but then, you know, putting these in and insetting them in the plywood would mean you would have to, you know, get a groove in there and everything else, and I didn't even want to play with that. So what we're going to attempt, we're going to try and see how it looks, and if it fails, it fails. We can go on there because it shouldn't be that bad. What we're going to do is we're going to cut a 2-inch, which I have 2-inch foam, so we don't even have to touch that. We're basically going to cut a 5-inch by 4-inch section of 2-inch foam, and then what we're going to do is on the top and the front face where that window is, and probably this side here, we're going to sheet it, and this is 40 thousandths sheet styrene. We're going to epoxy that in place to give it some rigidity, and that'll also give me a way to make a nice square opening to sink the LEDs when I'm done. So that's the plan, and we're going to try it and see how that works out, and go from there. So let's cut out a block and start playing. Alright, so I just want to show you how I'm making those little detail strips in the part there. And what this is 3/8-inch ply, birch ply. You can get this at like hobby shops and stuff like that. I think I got this at Michael's. And what I did is I cut a 1/2-inch strip off of it and a 5/8-inch strip off of it. And what we need to do is cut 3 pieces of the 5/8 inch wide at 4 1/8 inches long, and 2 strips of the 5/8 inch piece the same size, 4 1/8. So I just want to show you how we did it. Right here is just a little aluminum miter box. You buy these at a hobby shop. They come with the little X-Acto razor knives, and that's how I'm doing it. Now Harbor Freight does sell like a little mini chop saw, which would probably be good for this, but you know, I didn't want to go out and spend 30 bucks. Had this lying around, so I might as well use it. So we got our square marked out here. That way all my pieces are consistent, even if the measurement's off a little bit. Mark it out. Get it in our miter here. Line her up. Now this saw is really thin kerf, so we're gonna cut right on the line. I just kicked the camera there. But we're gonna just make a mark in it, and then I need a spacer on the bottom because this blade doesn't go all the way down to the bottom. There's usually a wider blade that comes with this. I just you know, can't find it at the moment, so we're just gonna bump it up a little bit with a piece of scrap and go right back into our groove here. And we got a nice square cut to length. And I'm just going to do one more of those. Alright, I have this all marked out according to the plans. And all I'm doing is where you see these X's, that's where the groove is going to be put. So all I'm doing is taking the razor saw and giving the vertical slice. Not that deep, maybe a little, maybe a ½ inch or so. I don't have to worry about depth. I'm just more or less worried about square sides. The depth we're going to take care of in a second. And I'm not worried about any little bit of tear out because this is going to be clad in plastic. And also any blemishes can be hidden with some Bondo after the fact. Okay, so you can see those are all cut in place. Now I just need to carve those out, and I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do that. And they gotta be what? I need needs to be a 1/4 inch deep. So these end ones are pretty easy. That's the end pieces there. Actually, it's this one and this one. I just have to do these ones down to 1/4 of an inch. Trying to, Okay, I just nibbled most of it away with the table saw, so now I should be able to just break these, and I don't care if it's all a little chewy in here. It's all going to be covered. As long as I get my depth okay. Alright, and I'll be able to straighten all that out once I get the glue in there. The glue's gonna, I'm gonna use that silicone, and that'll get all of that, and we'll be able to even everything out. And the only thing is that these front ends get rounded here, and same thing with here and the top. And then we can, I already cut the plastic, so then what I'm going to do right now, so here's that side, and I have the top right here, right there. So what we'll do is, the reason why I don't have anything on the bottom is because there's going to be a plate where the tubes go, and I don't have anything on the back because that needs to be hollowed out to put the LEDs in the front face. So what I'll do right now is get this all even to where I need it, and I'm going to trace out the pattern on the inside there so I can cut around the wood pieces. So let me do that. Okay, so let me get this out of here. Let's see what we're doing. And what we got here is we have this all cut out. We have our edges rounded. We have our front plastic piece notched. Rear plastic piece cut, or side. Top plastic piece cut. So what I'm going to do is mix up some epoxy. We'll get this one in. We'll favor one side. Get it in place here. We'll flatten it against one side and that side. Then this will go on the top, and then this will go on the front. And we'll epoxy these in place, and then we'll use some foam, some of that foam adhesive, and we'll stick these down in the slots. Whoop. That's not too bad there. You can see the, maybe the camera will pick up the overhang there. And I'm not worried about any gaps or anything in this. Not worried about any gaps here. Not worried about any gaps on the back here. This is going to be glued down to the motherboard in this direction here. I'm not worried about any gaps under here yet. because what we'll do is we'll actually fill all this in, probably with some painted silicone, something along that line, to fill up the gaps. And if I need to, we'll use some Bondo to fix some of the blemishes. So, like that little gap there. Actually, let me zoom in. So you see a little bit of a gap in this one here. I'm not worried about that. That'll all be taken care of later. You can see we got a nice surface and we're nice and light. And we still have enough room to hollow out the back and cut the square in the front for the LEDs. And that's it. And then right off the bottom will be our 2 tubes. So we'll let this dry overnight. And continue on with something else. Okay, so now that we got the other piece finished, what we're going to start on is this piece right here. Let me zoom in. This right here is what we're going to do. It's basically just a box with some more of those wood pieces here and there, and a little knob on the front, and a wood dowel in the middle. So in the plans here, let me zoom you back out. Okay, so what we have here is a bunch of those wooden dowels, and we got basically 2 sizes. Judging by this, there are actually 3, but 2 of the sizes there isn't much of a difference. So all these ones here are going to be the same size, and they're going to be made out of the 1/2-inch plywood. And these ones here are a little bit bigger and also 1/2 inch deep. Now the ones on the outside and the top here are going to be proud of the surface, while the ones on the inside and the bottom are going to be flush with the surface. And if you look, the side ones, the top, and probably the bottom ones, but the bottom ones are actually going to be covered a lot of that, so not much of a huge issue. But the top ones are from one side to the other, and the side ones are only down to the depth of this slot here. Now this, as you can see, pretty much just looks like a wooden dowel, and it is a standard size, 1.25 inch. So we'll get a wooden dowel and put it in here, and that's this here. This slot here, it says what, 3.878, and the outside dimension is 4.128. So we just took that to 3 7/8 and 4 1/4. That gives us the same distance, just round numbers. Also, if you look at this here, we have a slight taper to the part on the outside edge. This is the outside of the pack, and we have a slight taper on the top. Now it's not much, it's only about 1.5 degrees, and that could be draft angle from the actual molds, so they can pull the molds out easy. It's a complete possibility that that's what that was built in. But I just did it with a piece of sandpaper, and we already have our block cut out. And you can see we have a slight angle here, and I don't know if you can see on the top there, probably not, but we have a slight angle this way. Again, nothing really much. And then all the corners around it, which is something that we can do after the fact to blend everything in. Not a huge thing. So what we need to start doing here is cutting the slots for these wood pieces. And like I said, I already cut the block out, and we came up with the dimensions of 4.812 by 6.414 by 4.5. So we came as close to those as we can. Again, not ridiculously critical, as long as we got the proportions relatively right. And this is what we came up with. Now, you can see I have a 2-inch piece, a 3/4 inch piece, and a 2-inch piece. But due to the difference in width of these, we're slightly over 4.5. We are at about 4 9/16. So we're about a 16th or so oversized. Again, not critical, but a lot easier than trying to shave off a little piece of this foam. So zoom you out again, and all we're gonna do is, again, bottom, left, top, outside. I'm gonna take this here, turn this all around so I can read it, and we're going 3 7/8 from the bottom edge. So I'm gonna get all this marked out and we'll come back and take a look at it. Alright, so I have everything marked out. I did do a little bit of mismeasurement. I was one line off on the blueprints there for that center section, so I just had to move it down. But besides that, I have all the slots and slats and everything. It just all needs to be cut out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting out the wood forms. And last time I used a little razor saw to do it, but I just went through my little modeling arsenal, and I forgot I had this. And this is from, I don't know if you can see it there, it says Midwest Productions, it says Easy Cutter, and basically it's just a snip and a plait in there with some angles on it and some measurements, and it works really nice to snip things, and it works really good. I used to use this on plastic rods, plastic rounds, things like that. Works really good on that, and it actually cuts right through this 1/2 inch stuff here. Let me just swing this out just to here. It's easier to get towards my body. So you see we got that mark there. So if I put it on the tip, just so I have a nice flat angle there, just score it. Now I can move it back to where we have leverage, and just give it a squeeze, and it cuts right through. Actually managed to break that one out. It didn't do it on the other two that I just did, but see if we can clean that up. I don't know why I just did that on me, but probably because I was filming it, so it's gonna call me a liar. So put that in there, come back towards the middle with this little more leverage, and just give it a squeeze. Yeah, that one didn't break out. It works pretty good. So I'm just going to cut out all these slats here, and then I'll just round the edges, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I got most of the straight lines done, and I just used my razor saw here and was able to drag it right along my guidelines and go down to my depths. This chunk was easy to get out because I had enough to be able to get an X-Acto knife in there and cut that out. This is deeper. This has to be at an angle. So basically what I'll probably just do is just basically like that, and gently shave that down until it gets on the angle that I want. The rest of these, what I was able to do on the fronts is cut down with the X-Acto knife to as far as the knife would get me, and then just score the top and snap that piece out. So I'll have a perfect piece in the front, a perfect piece in the back, and then we can just carve out in between, and then whatever is left in there we can take up with the silicone. At least I have someplace nice to rest the wood on in the front and the back, and that'll give my level. And I'll basically do that with all of this here. So give me a little bit, I'll start carving this up. It's a boring process, so we're gonna skip it and just give you the gist of you know, what I'm doing here, and I'll pop all these pieces out. Okay, so we got her pretty much going here, and I know it looks a little cheesy in the middle, but that doesn't make a difference. We just care about the outside edges. So I'm gonna start gluing. And there it is. So like I said, any little gaps here, not really worried about it. What that'll be is that'll all be smoothed out after the fact. So that's it there, pretty much. Now we just need to do our round dowel piece, and the way I'm gonna do that is I actually have some square stock here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna split this down the middle, and then we're gonna set it up in the lathe, and we're gonna do a little bit of eccentric turning and see if we can get that radius right down, a perfect radius out of that perfect half moon, and then we can just right on top. At least that's the plan, so we'll see how we do. Okay, so we have this set up for an eccentric with the center of the chuck on the center of the wood, so we'll be able to cut a an 1.5 inch diameter by 3/4 inch radius there right on this. And we're going to do that for a length of 3 inches, so pretty much to the end of those chuck jaws. Then I have a nice flat spot I can put on the table saw and zip right across. That way I don't have to split something that's round on the table saw and risk losing the fingies. So let's see what we got here. Let's try this tool. And we're going relatively a little on the slow side here, just because we don't want to we have a decent hangout on this, and we don't want to put any more vibration into this as we can here. So, see how this works. Go in here and we'll touch. So there's the touch. I'll go in, take 100 thousandths, and we'll see how some feed in here. We'll see how this works. Okay, so it's nicking the edges and kind of doing what I want. So we could probably speed up the lathe a little bit and speed up our feed rate. Speed up the lathe and we'll bump her up to, what are we at now? I'll try this. A bit choppy on the finish there. Let me see what I got for high speed steel tools, and we'll probably pop one of those in a holder and use the high-speed steel tool. Get a nice good hone on it and probably get a better finish. So. Alright, so this is pretty much what we got so far. So there's a piece we just made, there's a piece we made before. You know, we're getting there. I just glued, cut that piece I just made on the lathe off the length, epoxied it right in the top, and then there was also another slot up here where another piece of that block sat. But, you know, it's getting there, little by little. So maybe next time we'll start doing the round hangy things. So we'll do the tubes here. There's going to be another tube here with some other doodads, and also there's going to be like a ladder type rack thing. I have to get some number 2 pencils for that actually, and we'll show you what those are going to be used for, and we'll probably make up that piece. So until next time, you know, we'll see you later.